Sarah Jenkins walked through the busy hallways of Memorial Hospital, her comfortable nursing shoes making soft squeaking sounds against the polished floor. At 32 years old, she had been working as a nurse for 8 years, but today felt different. The hospital had just opened its new rehabilitation wing, and she had been assigned to assist with physical therapy sessions. As she pushed open the glass doors to the rehabilitation center, her eyes immediately fell on a young man in a wheelchair. He was speaking with Dr. Thompson, the head physiotherapist, his voice carrying a warmth that made several staff members smile as they passed by. This was Marcus Thompson, a new patient who had been transferred from another hospital. "Good morning, I'm Sarah Jenkins, and I'll be assisting with your therapy sessions," she said, approaching them with a professional smile. Marcus turned his wheelchair to face her, and Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. Despite being confined to the wheelchair, he carried himself with dignity. His bright brown eyes sparkled with life, and his smile was genuine and welcoming. "Marcus Thompson," he replied, extending his hand. "And I promise to be your best patient." His laugh was infectious, filling the room with a joy that seemed to push away the clinical atmosphere of the hospital. During that first session, Sarah learned that Marcus had been in a construction accident 2 years ago. He had been supervising a project when a scaffold had collapsed, leaving him with a severe spinal cord injury. But what struck Sarah most wasn't his disability. It was his incredible spirit. "You know what's funny?" Marcus said while doing his arm exercises. "Before the accident, I never appreciated simple things. Now, every small victory feels like winning an Olympic medal." He grinned as he completed another set, sweat beading on his forehead. Sarah found herself looking forward to Marcus's therapy sessions. He never complained, even when the exercises were challenging. Instead, he would crack jokes or share stories about his work as a software developer, a career he continued from home after his accident. One day, about 3 weeks into his therapy, Marcus was struggling with a particularly difficult exercise. Sarah noticed his frustration and moved closer to offer support. "May I?" she asked, positioning her hands to help him maintain proper form. "Of course," Marcus replied, his voice softer than usual. "Though I should warn you, last time someone tried to help me with this exercise, I accidentally knocked over a water bottle and created quite a splash zone." Sarah couldn't help but laugh. "Well, I left my umbrella at home, so let's try to keep things dry today." As they worked together, Sarah noticed how Marcus's determination never wavered. Even when his arms shook from exertion, he pushed through, his face set in concentration. She admired his strength, not just physical but mental. Their professional relationship slowly began showing signs of something more. Sarah found herself spending her breaks chatting with Marcus about everything from their favorite books to their dreams for the future. He told her about his plans to develop accessible gaming software, and she shared her hopes of eventually opening a small clinic. However, both were careful to maintain professional boundaries during therapy sessions. Sarah knew the hospital's rules about staff-patient relationships, and Marcus respected her position too much to put her in an awkward situation. But fate had other plans. One evening, as Sarah was leaving work, she spotted Marcus struggling with his wheelchair in the parking lot. A small mechanical issue was preventing the wheel from turning properly. "Need a hand?" she asked, approaching him. "My knight in shining scrubs," Marcus joked, relief evident in his voice. "I was just about to call my brother for help." As Sarah helped him fix the wheel, their conversation flowed naturally, free from the constraints of the hospital environment. In that moment, they were just two people connecting on a human level. "You know," Marcus said thoughtfully as they finished, "I believe everything happens for a reason. Maybe this stubborn wheel was the universe's way of giving us a proper conversation outside those therapy room walls." Sarah felt her heart warm at his words. Looking at Marcus, she didn't see a patient or a person with a disability. She saw a man whose strength, humor, and kindness had gradually been drawing her in since day one. Little did they know, this parking lot encounter was just the beginning of a journey that would challenge their perceptions, test their strength, and ultimately lead them to a love story that would inspire many others. 3 months after their parking lot encounter, Sarah found herself sitting at her mother's dining table, pushing food around her plate. She had finally decided to tell her family about Marcus, but the conversation wasn't going as smoothly as she had hoped. "A disabled man?" her mother, Linda, asked with concern in her voice. "Sarah, honey, Have you really thought this through? Taking care of someone for the rest of your life is a big responsibility. Sarah put down her fork, trying to stay calm. Mom, Marcus doesn't need anyone to take care of him. He's independent, successful, and one of the strongest people I know. Her younger sister, Rachel, jumped in. But what about children? And how will you even go on proper dates? We go on wonderful dates, Sarah replied firmly. Last week, we went to an adaptive rock climbing center. Marcus was better at it than I was. She smiled, remembering how he had guided her through the easier routes while showing off his upper body strength on the more challenging ones. Meanwhile, Marcus was having his own family discussion. His brother James sat across from him in his apartment, looking worried. It's not just about the wheelchair, Marcus, James said carefully. You know how some people still act about interracial relationships. Are you ready to deal with both kinds of prejudice? Marcus wheeled himself to the window, looking out at the city below. Sarah and I already deal with stares when we're out together. But you know what? She holds her head high, and so do I. We're not ashamed of who we are or what we mean to each other. Over the next few weeks, both families struggled to adjust to the idea. Sarah's father, William, was particularly distant, barely speaking during family dinners when Marcus was mentioned. But everything changed the day Marcus's wheelchair got a flat tire near their house and William happened to drive by. William could have simply called for help, but instead he stopped. For the first time, he and Marcus had a real conversation as they worked together to fix the tire. Marcus shared stories about his work developing software for children with disabilities, and William found himself impressed by the young man's determination and intelligence. You know, William said as they finished, I was wrong about you, son. I was so focused on what you couldn't do that I missed seeing everything you can do. Sarah noticed the changes in her family gradually. Her mother stopped making concerned comments and started asking when Marcus would come for dinner. Rachel began sharing adaptive travel blogs with them, excited about planning future family trips together. But the biggest test came when Sarah and Marcus attended a friend's wedding. As they entered the reception hall, several guests stared and whispered. One elderly woman even asked Sarah loudly if she was Marcus's caregiver. Before Sarah could respond, Marcus spoke up with a smile. She's my girlfriend, actually, and she's terrible at caregiving. You should see how she burns toast. His humor diffused the tension, making even the elderly woman laugh. Later that evening, as they swayed together during a slow dance, Sarah sitting on Marcus's lap in his wheelchair, she realized something important. You know what? She whispered. I used to worry about what people thought. Now I just feel proud to be with you. Marcus looked up at her, his eyes shining. And I'm proud to be with you. We're breaking stereotypes just by being ourselves. Their relationship wasn't always easy. There were still days when people made ignorant comments or shot disapproving looks. Some of Sarah's old friends drifted away, uncomfortable with the situation. But for every person who left, they found others who supported them. Marcus's physical therapy colleagues became close friends, organizing game nights where everyone sat in wheelchairs to level the playing field. Sarah's hospital coworkers welcomed Marcus warmly at staff parties, treating him like any other significant other. As months passed, both families began to see what Sarah and Marcus had known from the start, that love doesn't care about physical abilities or skin color. During a Sunday dinner at Sarah's parents' house, watching Marcus teach her father a new card game while her mother asked his opinion about redecorating, Sarah smiled to herself. They hadn't just broken past prejudices, they had shown everyone around them that love sees beyond all barriers. As spring turned into summer, Sarah and Marcus's relationship blossomed in unexpected ways. Their dates were never ordinary, which made them even more special. Marcus always found creative ways to show Sarah that being in a wheelchair didn't limit their adventures. One sunny Saturday morning, Marcus surprised Sarah by taking her to a local pottery studio. The owner, an old friend of Marcus's, had modified a pottery wheel to be wheelchair accessible. Sarah watched in amazement as Marcus expertly shaped a small bowl, his strong hands guiding the clay with precision. I've been practicing for weeks, he admitted, clay splattered on his shirt. I wanted to make something special for you. The small, slightly crooked bowl became Sarah's favorite coffee mug, sitting proudly on her desk at work. Their weekday evenings often found them at Marcus's apartment, where he taught Sarah about his work. His home office was impressive, with 3 large monitors displaying complex coding projects. Sarah loved watching him work, his fingers flying across the keyboard as he developed software for children with disabilities. "See this program?" he explained one evening, showing her a colorful game on his screen. "It helps kids with limited mobility learn math. When a child gets an answer right, their whole family can celebrate with them." Sarah noticed how Marcus's eyes lit up when he talked about his work. His disability hadn't stopped him from making a difference in other people's lives. If anything, it had given him a unique perspective that made his work even more valuable. They also spent time at Sarah's small apartment, where Marcus helped her cook dinner. He had learned to navigate kitchen spaces expertly in his wheelchair, and together they created memorable meals. Sometimes they failed spectacularly, like the time they tried to make sushi and ended up ordering pizza instead. But those moments only brought them closer. "I love how you never treat me differently," Marcus said one evening as they cleaned up after dinner. "You don't try to do everything for me, but you're there when I need help." Sarah smiled, passing him a plate to dry. "That's because you're just Marcus to me. Not Marcus in a wheelchair. Just Marcus, the guy who makes terrible puns and drinks too much coffee." Their relationship wasn't just about fun times, though. They had serious conversations about their future, their fears, and their dreams. Marcus shared his worries about being a burden, and Sarah opened up about her past relationships that had failed because she put her career first. "With you, everything feels different," she told him during a quiet moment at the park. "I don't have to choose between my work and our relationship. You understand my dedication to nursing because you have the same passion for your work." One memorable date came when Marcus took Sarah to an adaptive sports center. He had been practicing wheelchair basketball, and he wanted to show her this part of his world. Sarah tried playing from a wheelchair herself, gaining a new appreciation for Marcus's strength and skill. "It's harder than it looks, isn't it?" He laughed as she struggled to maneuver and shoot at the same time. "I don't know how you make it look so easy," she admitted, red-faced from exertion. Their 18 months of dating weren't without challenges. There were days when Marcus's back pain was severe and times when Sarah worked long, exhausting shifts at the hospital, but they supported each other through everything. Marcus would send encouraging messages during Sarah's night shifts, sometimes having food delivered to the hospital when she couldn't take a break. On Marcus's bad days, Sarah knew when to offer help and when to simply be present, respecting his independence while showing her support. Their love grew stronger through these everyday moments. It wasn't about grand gestures or overcoming dramatic obstacles. It was about two people who saw each other for who they truly were, supporting each other's dreams and sharing life's simple joys. As their courtship progressed, both Sarah and Marcus knew they had found something special. Their relationship wasn't defined by his disability or their different backgrounds, but by their deep connection, shared values, and the joy they found in each other's company. The Jenkins family gathered at Sarah's parents' house for their annual summer barbecue. The backyard was filled with the smell of grilled food and the sound of laughter. Sarah's young nieces were running around playing tag, while her sister Rachel helped their mother bring out more dishes to the patio table. Marcus had been acting strange all day. Sarah noticed how he kept checking his phone and having quiet conversations with her father, William. She thought it was odd, but assumed they were discussing the upcoming football game they both loved to watch. What Sarah didn't know was that Marcus had spent the last 3 months secretly working with his physical therapist. Through intense sessions and determination, he had made progress that he kept hidden from everyone except Sarah's father, who had become one of his strongest supporters. "Are you sure about this?" William asked Marcus quietly, standing near the grill. "You don't have to push yourself." Marcus smiled confidently. "I've been practicing for months, sir. Today is the day." As the afternoon sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the backyard, Marcus asked everyone to gather around. Sarah stood next to her mother, wondering what was happening. She watched as James, Marcus's brother, wheeled him to the center of the patio. "Sarah," Marcus began, his voice clear and strong. "For the past 2 years, you've shown me what true love means. You've never seen my wheelchair as a barrier. Instead, you've seen me, just me." The family formed a circle around them, and Sarah felt her heart beating faster. Her mother squeezed her hand, tears already forming in her eyes. "When I met you at the hospital," Marcus continued, "I was focused on what I couldn't do, but you helped me see everything I could do instead. You supported my dreams, shared my challenges, and brought more joy to my life than I ever thought possible. Then, something extraordinary happened. James positioned himself behind Marcus's wheelchair, ready to help. Marcus placed his hands on the armrests and, with tremendous effort, began to push himself up. Sarah gasped. She hadn't known he was working on standing. Tears filled her eyes as she watched Marcus slowly rise, James carefully supporting him from behind. Marcus managed to balance himself, though James kept a steady hand on his back. "I've been working on this surprise for months," Marcus said, his voice slightly strained but full of emotion. "I wanted to do this the traditional way, even if I can only stand for a moment." Sarah's sister quickly brought forward a small velvet box, placing it in Marcus's trembling hand. The entire family watched in awe as Marcus, still standing with support, opened the box to reveal a beautiful ring. "Sarah Jenkins," he said, his eyes locked with hers, "will you marry me?" Sarah couldn't speak through her tears. She stepped forward, carefully wrapping her arms around Marcus, mindful of his balance. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, of course I will." The family erupted in cheers as James helped Marcus back into his wheelchair. Sarah knelt beside him as he slipped the ring onto her finger, a delicate silver band with a small diamond, exactly her style. "How long have you been practicing this?" she asked, still in shock. 3 months, Marcus replied, grinning. "Your dad helped me coordinate with the physical therapy center. I wanted to show you and your family that I'll always work hard to make our life together special." Linda, Sarah's mother, who had once been so worried about their relationship, was now crying openly. "That was the most beautiful proposal I've ever seen," she said, hugging them both. The rest of the evening turned into an impromptu engagement celebration. The family shared stories, made toasts, and began excitedly discussing wedding plans. Sarah's young nieces were especially thrilled, already arguing over who would be the flower girl. As the stars began to appear in the evening sky, Sarah and Marcus found a quiet moment alone on the patio. "I can't believe you did all this," Sarah said, admiring her ring. Marcus took her hand. "I'd do anything for you, Sarah. This is just the beginning of our journey together." They stayed there for a while, talking about their future, their dreams, and the life they would build together. The wheelchair beneath them wasn't a barrier, it was just part of their unique love story, a story that proved that true love knows no limitations. The months following Marcus and Sarah's engagement were filled with both excitement and challenges as they planned their wedding. They wanted a ceremony that would be perfect for both of them, which meant carefully considering every detail to ensure it was accessible and comfortable for Marcus while still creating their dream day. Sarah and her mother Linda spent one Saturday morning visiting wedding venues. The first 3 places they saw were beautiful, but had too many stairs or narrow doorways. Sarah felt her heart sink a little more with each unsuitable venue. "Don't worry, honey," Linda said, squeezing her daughter's hand. "The perfect place is out there." They found it in the Crystal Garden venue, a modern building with wide doorways, smooth floors, and a beautiful outdoor space with paved paths. When they showed Marcus the next day, his face lit up as he easily moved his wheelchair through the spacious rooms. "This is it," he said, imagining their wedding day. "And look at that dance floor, plenty of room for our first dance." Planning their first dance brought its own special considerations. Marcus and Sarah took private dance lessons from an instructor who specialized in adaptive dancing. They practiced for weeks, creating a beautiful routine where Sarah would gracefully spin and move while seated on Marcus's lap in his wheelchair. "You're a natural," Sarah laughed during one practice session as Marcus executed a perfect spin. "Well, I have wheels instead of left feet," he joked back, making their instructor chuckle. The couple faced some unique challenges when choosing their wedding attire. Marcus needed a suit that would look elegant while being comfortable for sitting. A local tailor who had experience working with wheelchair users helped create the perfect suit, making sure it wouldn't bunch up or restrict his movement. Sarah found her dream dress at the third bridal shop they visited. The owner was a kind woman who had a sister in a wheelchair, and she knew exactly how to adjust the dress so it would look beautiful whether Sarah was standing or sitting with Marcus. "You look like an angel," Marcus whispered when Sarah showed him a photo of the dress on her phone. She had kept to the tradition of not letting him see the actual dress before the wedding. Their families helped enormously with the preparations. James, Marcus's brother, took charge of ensuring all the wedding day transportation was wheelchair accessible. Rachel, Sarah's sister, worked with the florist to create decorations that wouldn't get in the way of Marcus's wheelchair. Even Sarah's young nieces got involved, practicing how to walk slowly down the aisle as flower girls so they could match the pace of Marcus's wheelchair during the ceremony. The wedding registry was another area where they got creative. Instead of traditional gifts, they asked guests to contribute to a fund for making their future home fully accessible. Marcus's co-workers from his software company surprised them by offering to cover the cost of installing automatic doors. One evening, while reviewing their plans, Marcus noticed Sarah looking worried over the budget spreadsheet. "What's wrong?" he asked, moving his wheelchair closer to her. "Everything is costing more than we expected," she admitted. "All the accessible additions are adding up." Marcus took her hand. "Hey, remember what we said? We're not just planning a wedding, we're creating our perfect day, one that works for both of us. It's worth every penny." The most touching moment during their preparations came when William, Sarah's father, presented them with a surprise. He had been learning woodworking and created a custom-made wooden aisle runner with slightly raised edges. "This way," he explained, showing them his work, "Marcus can feel the edges through his wheels and stay perfectly centered during the ceremony without having to worry about looking down." Sarah hugged her father, tears in her eyes. It was moments like these that showed how far they had all come, how their families had not only accepted their love but embraced it completely. As the wedding day drew closer, Sarah and Marcus found themselves more excited than nervous. Yes, their wedding required more planning and consideration than most, but that only made it more special. They were creating something unique to them, a celebration that would reflect their love story in every detail. 1 month to go, Marcus said one evening, as they finished addressing invitations, "Are you ready to become Mrs. Thompson?" Sarah smiled, leaning down to kiss him. "I've been ready since the day I met you." The morning of Sarah and Marcus's wedding dawned bright and clear. The Crystal Garden venue buzzed with activity as decorators put final touches on the accessibility-friendly arrangements. The custom-made wooden aisle runner that Sarah's father had crafted lay perfectly centered, its raised edges barely visible but ready to guide Marcus's wheelchair. In the bridal suite, Sarah sat before a mirror while her sister Rachel arranged her veil. Her mother Linda was already dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, trying not to ruin her makeup. "Mom, if you start crying now, I'll start crying too," Sarah laughed, reaching for her mother's hand. "I can't help it," Linda replied. "When I think about how far we've all come, I was so wrong in the beginning, and now I can't imagine a better man for my daughter." Meanwhile, in the groom's room, Marcus was getting ready with help from his brother James. His new suit fit perfectly, specially tailored to look impeccable while he sat in his wheelchair. James had just finished helping him with his bow tie when their mother knocked on the door. "My handsome boy," she said, entering the room. "Sarah is going to be speechless when she sees you." Marcus grinned, adjusting his wheelchair slightly to check his reflection one last time. "I just hope I can get through my vows without crying," he admitted. The ceremony space filled with guests, all admiring how the decorations had been arranged to create wide, clear pathways. Flowers in shades of blue and white lined the aisle without overhanging, ensuring Marcus's wheelchair would move smoothly past them. The moment arrived. The wedding coordinator gave Marcus his cue, and he began his journey down the aisle, his specially decorated wheelchair gleaming. He had practiced this moment countless times, feeling the subtle guidance of the wooden runner's edges through his wheels. The guests watched with emotion as Marcus made his way to the altar space, his movement smooth and confident. He positioned himself perfectly at the end of the aisle, turning to wait for his bride. The music changed, and everyone stood. William took his place beside Sarah at the entrance. Before they began their walk, he squeezed her hand and whispered, "I've never been more proud, sweetheart." Sarah appeared in her beautiful dress, which flowed perfectly as she walked. She had chosen a design that would look just as stunning later when she would sit with Marcus during their first dance. As she moved down the aisle with her father, her eyes locked with Marcus's, and both of them felt tears welling up. When they reached the altar, William did something unexpected. Instead of just giving Sarah's hand to Marcus, he leaned down and hugged his soon-to-be son-in-law. There wasn't a dry eye in the venue. The ceremony was everything they had hoped for. They had written their own vows, and Marcus went first, his voice strong and clear. "Sarah, you saw me, not my wheelchair. You loved me, not despite my challenges, but including them as part of who I am. I promise to love you just as completely, to support your dreams, and to be the man you deserve. Sarah's voice trembled as she spoke her vows. Marcus, you taught me what real strength looks like. Your determination, your kindness, and your love have made me a better person. I promise to be your partner in all things, to face every challenge together, and to love you more each day. The exchange of rings was made more special by the ring pillow. Marcus's young nephew had attached it to a small remote-controlled car, driving it carefully to deliver the rings, making everyone laugh and cheer. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Sarah leaned down to kiss Marcus, and the venue erupted in applause. As they made their way back down the aisle together, guests threw white rose petals that had been specially selected to be wheelchair-friendly. At the end of the aisle, Marcus surprised everyone by activating a new feature on his wheelchair, small decorative lights that spelled out "Just Married" on the wheels as they spun. Another one of your secret projects? Sarah asked, laughing through happy tears. The first of many surprises today, Marcus replied with a mysterious smile, knowing that the biggest surprise of all was still to come during their wedding night drive. As they prepared to move to the reception area, both Sarah and Marcus knew that this was more than just their wedding day. It was a celebration of love that knew no boundaries, proving that true love doesn't need legs to stand on, only hearts that beat as one. After the joyful wedding reception filled with dancing, toasts, and celebrations, Sarah and Marcus left the venue amid a shower of rose petals and well wishes from their guests. They got into their specially adapted car, which James had decorated with "Just Married" signs and trailing ribbons. Marcus seemed unusually quiet as they drove, his hands fidgeting in his lap. Sarah noticed his nervousness but assumed it was just wedding night jitters. They were heading to a luxury hotel that Marcus had insisted on booking, though he had been mysterious about the details. "Are you okay, honey?" Sarah asked, reaching over to touch his hand. "You seem tense." Marcus took a deep breath. "Sarah, there's something I need to tell you. Something I've been keeping secret for almost a year." Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. In all their time together, Marcus had never kept secrets from her. She turned slightly in her seat to look at him better, concern showing on her face. "Remember last year when I started going to that new medical center twice a week?" Marcus began, his voice slightly shaky. "I told you it was for routine physical therapy." "Yes, I remember," Sarah replied. "You said it was helping with your back pain." Marcus smiled nervously. "That wasn't the whole truth. I was actually part of an experimental treatment program for spinal cord injuries. The doctors were testing a new combination of stem cell therapy and advanced physical rehabilitation." Sarah's eyes widened. "Marcus, what are you saying?" "Pull over at the next rest stop," he said softly. "I want to show you something." Sarah found a safe spot to park the car. Her wedding dress rustled as she turned to face her new husband, her heart pounding with anticipation. Marcus took another deep breath. "The treatment. It's been working, Sarah. Slowly, but it's working. I didn't want to say anything until I was sure, and I wanted today to be special." With trembling hands, Marcus reached down and moved his right foot slightly. Sarah gasped. Then, with visible effort, he lifted his leg a few inches off the footrest of his wheelchair. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered, tears filling her eyes. "Marcus." "I can feel my legs again," he said, his own eyes welling up. "It's not complete, and I still have a long way to go, but the doctors say I'm making exceptional progress. I might even be able to stand on my own for short periods within the next year." Sarah's hands flew to her mouth, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Marcus reached out to wipe away her tears. "I didn't want to get your hopes up until I was sure it was working. And honestly, I needed to know that you married me for who I am now, not for who I might become. Your love for me, wheelchair and all, has meant everything." "Oh, Marcus," Sarah moved closer to embrace him. "I would have supported you through this journey. I'm your wife now. We're supposed to share everything, good and bad." "I know," he said, holding her tight. "But watching you love me exactly as I am, without knowing about this possibility, it made me fall in love with you even more. And now we can share this journey together." Sarah sat back, wiping her eyes and smiling. "So this is why you insisted on booking the hotel yourself? Does it have special rehabilitation facilities?" Marcus nodded. the best in the state. I have a session scheduled tomorrow morning, and I want you there with me. From now on, every small victory will be ours to share. I can't believe you managed to keep this secret. Sarah laughed through her tears. Does anyone else know? Just my doctors and James. I needed his help with transportation sometimes. Even our parents don't know yet. Sarah took his hand, squeezing it tight. I'm so proud of you, Marcus. Not because of the treatment or the progress, but because of your strength in going through this alone. But you're not alone anymore. Marcus pulled her close for another kiss. No, I'm not. And Sarah? This is just the beginning of our adventure together. As they sat there in their decorated wedding car, both crying and laughing, they knew that whatever the future held, whether Marcus regained full mobility or not, they would face it together, their love stronger than any challenge life could present. 1 year had passed since Sarah and Marcus's wedding night revelation. Their lives had changed in ways they never expected, filled with both challenges and triumphs as they navigated Marcus's treatment journey together. The morning after their wedding, Sarah had attended her first rehabilitation session with Marcus. She had watched with tears of joy as he showed her the small movements he could make, the slight wiggle of his toes that represented months of hard work. From that day forward, she became his biggest cheerleader. Remember to breathe, Sarah would say during particularly difficult exercises, holding Marcus's hand as he worked with the physical therapists. Her nursing background proved invaluable as she helped him understand the medical aspects of his treatment. Their families had been overwhelmed when they finally shared the news. Linda, Sarah's mother, had hugged Marcus so tight he joked about needing extra therapy. William, who had already become Marcus's strongest supporter, started building adaptive exercise equipment for their home. I never thought I'd see my son walk again, Marcus's mother had said through tears after watching him take his first assisted steps between parallel bars. But Sarah, you gave him the strength to try. The journey wasn't always easy. There were days when Marcus felt frustrated by the slow progress, days when his body wouldn't cooperate with what his mind wanted it to do. During these times, Sarah proved to be exactly the partner he needed. Remember what you told me when we first started dating? She would say during tough moments. Every small victory is worth celebrating. Moving your toe is just as important as taking a step. Marcus continued his work developing accessible software, but now he had a new mission. He started creating programs to help other people with spinal cord injuries track their recovery progress. His first-hand experience made the software more useful than anything else on the market. You're changing lives, Sarah told him one evening as she watched him work. Not just through your recovery, but by helping others on their journeys too. Their love story became an inspiration at the rehabilitation center. New patients would light up when they heard Marcus was coming in for his session, eager to talk to someone who understood their struggles and could show them that progress was possible. Sarah and Marcus made it a tradition to dance together every month on their wedding anniversary date. At first, it was just like their wedding dance, with Sarah sitting in Marcus's lap. But by their first anniversary, Marcus could stand for short periods, supported by parallel bars, allowing them to sway together while standing. Next year, Marcus said during one of these dances, I might even manage a small twirl. The biggest surprise came when Sarah discovered she was pregnant, 6 months after their wedding. The news brought both joy and new considerations for their future. Marcus threw himself into his therapy with renewed determination. I want to be able to hold our baby while standing, he told his physical therapist, working harder than ever. As Sarah's belly grew, they adapted their home to make it ready for both the baby and Marcus's improving mobility. They installed support bars in strategic locations, bought a crib that could be accessed from a wheelchair, and created spaces where Marcus could practice standing safely. On their first anniversary, they hosted a small gathering at their home. Marcus had a surprise planned. With Sarah's support on one side and a walking frame on the other, he stood up and took 3 small steps. The room erupted in applause and tears. This isn't just my victory, Marcus said, looking at his wife with eyes full of love. This is our victory. Sarah, you showed me that love doesn't see limitations. You loved me completely when I couldn't move my legs at all, and you love me the same now that I can take a few steps. Sarah, her hand resting on her growing belly, smiled through happy tears. And I love you the same whether you take 3 steps or 3,000. What matters is that we're together. As they looked around at their gathered family and friends, Both Sarah and Marcus knew that their story was far from over. Each day brought new challenges and new victories, but they faced them all together, proving that true love could overcome any obstacle life put in their path. Their story became more than just a tale of recovery. It became a testament to the power of love, acceptance, and determination. They showed the world that happiness doesn't depend on physical abilities, but on having someone who believes in you, supports you, and loves you completely, just as you are.